Everything likely.
Ripley's Believe It or Not will continue in a moment.
Thursday.
Faced with a desperate situation, some men find inspiration. The early dark days of World War II presented many desperate situations. In the first 7 months of 1942, almost 700 Allied ships were sunk in the North Atlantic by Nazi submarines. For U-boat skippers, the convoys were sitting ducks. The war at sea was being lost. Something had to be done. One of the most ambitious plans conceived was to avoid enemy submarines altogether by flying over them with giant cargo planes, planes far bigger than any aircraft ever built before. The result of this plan, ultimately, was a phenomenal creation. The H-4 Hughes flying boat, more commonly known as the Spruce Goose. It was a giant undertaking. No airplane in the world has ever even come close to the size of this gargantuan flying boat. It weighs almost 200 tons. 4 massive engines are mounted on each wing. The wingspan is 20 feet longer than a football field. And the tail is as tall as an 8-story building. The vast interior of the Spruce Goose was expected to carry 750 men in a single flight. She was made almost entirely of wood because of wartime metal shortages, and she was designed to take off and land from the water, hence the name, Spruce Goose. Its designer and builder, the fabled Howard Hughes, didn't much like that designation, Spruce Goose. But he hated another term applied by some of his fiercest critics. They called his plane the Flying Lumberyard. Such criticism didn't faze Howard Hughes. As a pilot, he had already set 2 flying records. Then, in 1938, he took off with his crew to fly around the world. To make the trip, the eccentric millionaire had spent 2 years in careful preparation. Survival gear on board included a load of ping pong balls to provide flotation in case the plane crashed at sea. After 3 days, 19 hours and 17 minutes, Hughes landed to claim the world record. To politicians, press, and public, he was an instant hero. The New York ticker tape parade honoring Hughes surpassed the greeting which celebrated Lindbergh's solo Atlantic flight. The roar of the crowd, however, was soon to be replaced by the thunder of war. The flamboyant pilot became a determined wartime builder. For him, the construction of the Spruce Goose became a personal challenge. Begun in 1942, it would take 5 years to build and cost $25 million. To Howard Hughes, the money didn't seem to matter. For him, the creation of a gigantic flying troop ship was a dream worth working for. Once built, the huge landlocked flying boat had to be moved in sections from Culver City, California, to the ocean at Long Beach, 28 miles away. It took 6 days. Over 2,000 utility lines had to be moved, and police had to close off major streets and highways. The giant parts of the monstrous plane were transported on rigs normally used to move houses. monumental undertaking became an excuse for a holiday. School children were even let out of class to watch the parade. Once in place at a special pier in Long Beach Harbor, the delicate job of final assembly could begin. By the time all the pieces were ready to put together, the war that had inspired the creation of the Spruce Goose had been over for almost a year. The challenge, however, was not. The assembly took place without a major hitch. Howard Hughes had overcome every obstacle, except one, the Congress of the United States. Some members of Congress were convinced that what Hughes had built would never fly, and that it was, in fact, a gigantic boondoggle. That suggestion did not sit well with Howard Hughes.
Did you make any profit out of this main contract?
Well, Senator, you know very well I not only didn't make anything, I have lost $7,200,000 to date. I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it. And I have stated several times that if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back, and I mean it.
To Congress, the Spruce Goose seemed dead in the water. Hughes remained confident of ultimate success. He announced that on November 2nd, 1947, he would personally conduct a series of tests to prove that the Spruce Goose was seaworthy. The tests would be limited, he said, to a tour on the water around the harbor. No one knew, however, exactly what Howard Hughes intended to do. Local boat owners were pressed into service by newsreel cameramen eager to get close to the plane. Most reporters, however, left to file their stories before Hughes completed his harbor tour. They assumed that nothing else was going to happen. But with Howard Hughes, it was always a mistake to make assumptions about anything. Suddenly, Hughes did the unexpected. Radio reporter James McNamara described the action.
Howard Hughes has just alerted us. He has asked everyone to hold on. Tremendous horsepower kicking up. Howard is sitting directly in front of us. He's holding on to his seat. Here we go. It's 55. More throttle. It's 60. It bounces to 65. It's 70. It's 75. We were airborne for just a moment, and we were really up in the air. Howard, did you expect that? Certainly. I like to make surprises. You were surprised or not? Oh, I said I thought I'd make a surprise.
Howard Hughes had made his point. The Spruce Goose could fly. But after that one brief moment, it never flew again. Hughes was an impenetrably mysterious man, and no one will ever know his reasons with certainty. As an experiment, the Spruce Goose was both a success and a failure. It worked, but the war and the reason for being was over. For the next 36 years, the Spruce Goose was kept under wraps. She had cost over $25 million and had flown less than a mile. Folly or triumph? Often, it's only time that tells. The Spruce Goose, on permanent display in Long Beach, California, a gigantic monument to a colossal dream, an epitaph for the only man who ever made it fly, Howard Hughes. Believe it or not. The Spruce Goose is so huge, a DC-10 passenger plane could be parked under each wing. Believe it or not. In a moment, walk a tightrope with a blindfolded performing bear in Russia. Get down to basics with Smidget, the world's smallest horse.
In sport and fiction, some horses have been immortalized. There was Man of War, Seattle Slew, Black Beauty, and Hi-Ho Silver.
And then there's Smidget, the world's smallest horse. At 4 years of age, she's fully matured. She's just under 2 feet high and weighs about 75 pounds.
Compared to standard-size horses, Smidget may look like a barnyard mascot, but she's smart enough to go for a walk instead of a ride. She's the result of over a century of selective breeding. Smidget's owner wasn't satisfied with just a miniature horse. He wanted the smallest. And whether it's the first or the best, the biggest or the fastest, the relationship between man and the animals of the world has resulted in some remarkable achievements. In this circus in Moscow, there is no doubt about who is the star of the show. For over 100 years, performing bears have been a Russian tradition. Standard gymnastic equipment is a recent addition to the act. These are the flying rings. Enticed by a trainer with a sugar cube, the bears prepare to perform one of the most difficult of all gymnastic feats. Each bear can weigh as much as 700 pounds, yet they can grip the rings and with arms outstretched, go aloft to swing like daring young men on the flying trapeze. Make it look easy. To teach them to perform stunts like this, however, sometimes takes years and often begins when they are only 3 months old. As acrobats, bears are capable of learning remarkable skills. They are agile, intelligent, and apparently docile. But appearances can be deceiving. Despite their appealing charm, a journalist once reported that they killed and injured more trainers than all other performing circus animals combined. As performers, pigs are not in the same class with bears, but as a pet, at least one has claimed the affection of a doting owner.
Come on. Get out of the mud. Come on. Hey, look.
Called Miss Penelope, she is the prized pet of a family in Santa Rosa, California. She has her own mud to wallow in, a faithful canine companion, and a lot of tender, loving care.
I still have it.
To show her appreciation, Miss Penelope does a pig's version of a cat's purr. According to her owners, Miss Penelope is as clean as she is smart. For her, opening doors is no problem at all. The dog is not permitted in, but Miss Penelope has the run of the house. She was only 7 pounds when she first joined the household. Now she squeaks through the narrow hallways at over 300 pounds. But at that size, there's just that much more to love. Despite cannibalistic implications, a slice of ham is a special treat for the pampered porker. Of course, Miss Penelope may not know she's related to the snack. Her owners believe she thinks she's a dog.
A little bit more. Atta girl. Lay down. Atta girl.
Linda Stone, her husband Neil, and their son Tony are convinced that pigs are brighter, neater, and smell better than dogs. That's why the family pooch stays in the doghouse while Miss Penelope gets to watch television. In fact, she has the best of both worlds. In a battle over airspace in France, the French Air Command confronted an unusual enemy. Despite their grace, seagulls can be a deadly menace. In a collision with a high-speed jet, a single seagull has the impact of a cannon shot. To protect their pilots from such shattering and potentially fatal accidents, the French Air Force set out to fight birds with birds. Falcons are instinctive killers. The hood keeps them blindfolded and under control. At one time, hunting with falcons was a sport of kings. Now, in the hands of this expert falconer, the birds do not kill for sport, but to save human lives. The regular patrols of the airbase began 3 years ago. Before Bernard Prévost and his birds were enlisted to mount a counter-offensive, powerful but vulnerable jet aircraft had suffered a continual series of collisions with small but lethal seagulls. Now, the birds of prey have swept the skies and keep them clear by attacking any seagull which violates the territory the falcons have claimed as their own. The falcon does not eat its catch. It is trained to kill and then to return to its guard post on the hand of its master. From that perch, the falcon continues to scan the horizon for any other intruders. To the French Air Force, the birds are honored as members of the officially designated Falcon Corps. To frighten away over 15,000 seagulls, it took a patrol of only 10 falcons. Unlike falcons distinguished by their lethal skills, some creatures must rely on luck to achieve individual recognition. In that category, luck and longevity have made the sole occupant of this Florida kennel worth $12 million. A full-time staff is employed to make sure the dog gets the best of everything. The dog's name is Musketeer. He is 15 years old, an undistinguished mongrel who gets blue ribbon treatment from his keepers for an excellent reason. In 1968, a wealthy lady left her fortune to a group of 150 dogs. Musketeer is the sole survivor. His keeper, Warren Williams, describes the fate of the others.
This is the remains of 150 dogs, or dogs we had cremated. We had pieces of heart, lung, and liver sent to Auburn University. And they send back an autopsy as to what they died from. And here's a big dog, ashes from a big dog. This is BB. We have a smaller dog, which is Naomi. Our most recent dog to die was Maybelle. They were all mixed breed dogs. There was no thoroughbreds at all.
The dogs were the beneficiaries of Eleanor Ritchie. She left them stocks and bonds now worth over $12 million. When Musketeer dies, the entire fortune will go to finance research in veterinary medicine at Auburn University. Until then, Musketeer will remain the richest dog in the world. Believe it or not.
In a moment, discover how a teenage inventor changed your life forever.
Live it to the limit. Live it to the limit in Wrangler. Give it all that you got. Do it, dare it, don't ever stop. No matter what, it feels so good. Looks so right. Wrangler fits your style of life. So live it to the limit. Live it to the limit in Wrangler.
So how come you didn't invite me?
Nobody was invited. They just showed up.
Aren't you wondering why I didn't show up?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
When did you start drinking this?
Since they improved it.
Oh, now it's got NutraSweet.
Yeah.
It's good.
So, let's go over to Freddie's house.
Okay, but he's why I didn't show up.
Taste. Improved by Diet Pepsi.
It may be hard to imagine or remember, but there was once a time when television didn't exist. In those days, people had to find other ways to occupy themselves, and sometimes they accomplished amazing things. Back in 1921, in the small and remote farming town of Rigby, Idaho, a freshman high school student named Philo T. Farnsworth filled his time by dreaming up fantastic new inventions. One day, one of Farnsworth's teachers walked into a classroom just as Philo was putting the finishing touches on a detailed diagram for his latest creation. Intrigued, the teacher studied the diagram for days. But he could find nothing wrong with it. It should work, he thought, and it did. In time, the brilliant young student was granted a patent on his device. Now, everyone has heard of Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and the Wright brothers. By some odd oversight of history, however, relatively few know the name of Philo T. Farnsworth, but his invention changed the world as much as anything they came up with. For what the teenage genius of Rigby, Idaho had devised and went on to perfect was nothing more or less than television. Believe it or not. Next on Ripley's Believe It or Not, share a ritual dunking at a wedding in India. Travel into the past to test the survival skills of modern man in an ancient setting. Take a ride down Abraham Lincoln's nose. Trek across Australia behind the wheel of a vehicle that runs on the sun. Brave sub-zero temperatures to hunt with Eskimos in search of a meal.
Chances are, people do the craziest things. Then